Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Tobifusika Podcast. I'm your host Tobifusika again, and we're here with another beautiful episode. And I can't wait for how the discussion will go. So I have a special guest with me, as usual. I mean, every guest I have here is special, really, really special. And I'll leave her to introduce herself, tell us her name, and what she does, and if she has money to share to us. Well, as a big woman that she is.
In this economy. Oh, hello
Not easy,
everyone. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Shekinah Nuhu, and I am currently in my final year studying law at the University of Ibadan. No big deals. And other than that, I am, I would say, a budding entrepreneur, a budding content creator. I would say aspiring content creator because I've been aspiring since like SS3. But I do that and that on the side. And I'm a child of God. I love God.
Yes.
Which I feel like should be the first introduction. I think
important.
that sums me up in general.
Nice to meet you.
Thank
What's that
you.
making me call you again? Shakes.
Big shakes.
God. When big guys entered, it's equal to money. That's how people.
You know what? It's like faith is till you make it. How about that?
Yes, faith. I need to write that. Faith is till you make it. So we're not faking it.
Yeah.
We're faking it. Okay, so today's topic is going to be a bit not the norm, but I mean everything still revolves around our faith. So I mean, we're just learning how we deal with all of this with our faith. And today we're going to be talking about dealing with grief. And I'm very excited that Shekinah has agreed to like share, because I mean we know how personal grief can be. I mean, not everybody's willing to like just talk about it, really. So let's start from the beginning. What's your family like? Is it not true? Family structure like?
Okay.
So how many kids are you guys?
Okay. All right. We're 3 girls. I am the last, and I have 2 older sisters. And we're a pretty like nuclear family. Like just my mom, my dad, and my sisters. But my mom is that kind of person who just likes people around. So at every given point in time, we've had one cousin, one sister, one auntie, one nephew, one somebody, living there. So I have never lived with just my mom, my sisters, and my dad. I mean, while we were still alive.
Like alone.
Never.
Wow.
Never.
There was always somebody like
always one auntie. And looking back now, I'm thankful that I had those experiences, right? Because I just feel like it has helped me deal with people and know how to like relate to people and accommodate people that are exactly.
Family, yeah.
So and it also just saved me from doing like chores, because like people are not very gracious to girl children rather, because you do all the sweeping, all the cleaning, but these people who are now living with her, they take it upon themselves to always like
to help her. So I mean, you didn't go through the last one, suffering.
Not really to wash plates, just once.
Oh
but
my
like,
God, can we swap? Like firstborns, I went through it a lot. Firstborns, I mean, I can imagine. So how did you get the news? Like, where were you?
Okay.
Who called you? Who told you? Wait, were you in school?
No, I was actually at home.
Oh yeah, okay.
I was at home. So a bit of a backstory, which I feel like will help telling the story well. My dad had been ill in 2018.
Okay.
This was when I had just finished secondary school.
Okay.
He was very, very sick, and he was actually in the hospital on my graduation day.
Wow.
Gone. Exactly. So my school would have like a week of graduation activities, and out of the week, about 2 or 3 days would require parents to come into the school before the actual graduation day. But of course, like my mom wasn't even able to make it because she was with my dad in the hospital for the time. So it was just my sister and my uncles that would come at the time. So on the day of the graduation, my mom had to even sneak in quickly just so that she would be in the pictures and all of that. So she came and then we went to the hospital to see him. So at the time, it was diagnosed that he had water in his lungs, and we didn't even understand, because like, how does that even happen?
Yeah.
So but he recovered from that, and came back home and was normal. This was 2018, yeah. Continued to live a normal life, 2020, 2019, 2020. And then COVID hit.
Oh.
And when COVID hit, like, he had traveled to Taraba for something. It was the end of 2020 year. So he had gone to Taraba.
So it was even after COVID, okay.
Yeah, it was after COVID. Like, towards the tail end of 2020, actually. So he had gone to Taraba for something, and then called my mom I will never forget, on a Sunday, we were come back from church. So my mom picked her phone just as we were pulling into the driveway, and then he called and was like, can my mom come and pick him from the airport? Because normally he would come by himself.
Yeah.
My mom was like, what happened? He was like, he feels like he's sick, and that he would like my mom to come and pick him. And my mom was like, okay. So she called our driver at the time, and then they went to pick him, and then they got back to the house. Came back home, was normal. And then, actually, no, they didn't even come back home. They went straight to the hospital.
Okay.
They went straight
Okay.
to the hospital because he was feeling a little down. But he came back home and he was okay. And, he was okay for a couple of weeks and all of that. And then on I think
So
this
was
should be
that into
15th.
2021 now?
This is into 2021 now. So January 15th, 2021, he was trying to like steam his face.
Okay.
I think he was maybe a little sick a little after that also. And he was trying to like steam his face with hot water, and then the water poured on him. And so he was like, so we quickly rushed to the hospital. And my mom, I didn't follow them. So my mom, my sister, and my uncle went to the hospital. And then, transferred him to National Hospital. He was there for a bit. So this was Friday now. This because the hospital incident happened on a Thursday. So
Thursday,
Friday
okay.
now, house on Friday, and he's at the back seat of one of my uncle's Sienna. We all come downstairs to see him.
Yeah.
And in that moment, when I tell you that all my body, like all the hairs on my skin stood, and I was so in shock because I was like, this is not my father. Like, he was so lean.
So just from the hot
literally
water.
from Thursday to that Friday. Like literally like in the space of almost 2 days or 24 hours, I'm saying he looked so lean and he could barely speak. So his voice was like so coarse, like he couldn't even drink water. Probably had to use like a straw and all of that. And I was just I didn't think that it would be this bad,
because it was just the hot water thing that took him to the hospital.
And I was like, that's so weird. They were just trying to like get an ambulance because my dad was like, he doesn't want to go to National Hospital, he wants to go back to Jos because all his doctors are in Jos and they know his history and all of the things that he has dealt with. So instead of having to explain, I've had this, I've had, he's just so tired. So he was like, he wants to go to Jos. So we were trying to get an ambulance just so that they can beat all the checkpoints and all of those things. So they got an ambulance, and I think they couldn't get an ambulance that night, so they had to wait to the next morning, and then they traveled to Jos. And so they had gone to Jos. Sunday morning, I woke up at 4 a.m., which was so weird. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I carried my dad's clothes and I was just praying. I was like, oh Lord, like I just, praying and all of that.
Yeah.
And I sat back, woke up at like 10 or so, but woke up to my cousin's phone call. Actually, she was like, oh, Tunde, how far? Tunde is my other name. Tunde, how far? Like, oh, mommy called and said that we should come to the house, that they'll take some time before they come back to Abuja. So we should just come and stay with you. And I was like, okay, no, I didn't think too much of it. I was like, okay, come.
So they came to, okay.
So this was my cousin now. So they came to my house, like right after church. I didn't know at this point that they had announced it in my church that my dad had passed. Like I'm from Taraba State, so we have like a state church.
Church, okay.
Yeah, most people go to. So they had announced it. And my dad he's a very big public figure, like amongst Taraba people. Like if you meet anybody who is Taraba, who is Kuteba, you come remember Beatrice, know they know my dad. Like so they had announced that this person is dead. And my cousin came over and she was avoiding my eyes. And so I started to get very suspicious, but I just like, until I hear the reports, anything is possible. And this my cousin, if I catch her, because she kept on saying her dad had like a very serious illness like earlier in the year, earlier in 2020, that is, or 2019, sorry. Actually, no, 2020. Okay. And so she was telling me that, can I remember how her dad was sick and he got well, and my dad too. Somebody that I knew that my father was there. I was like, this baby, you're so wicked. But I understood where she was coming from in doing all of those. At this point, Deborah, who's my older sister, was in just with them. She would call and cut like the call, and I was like, what's going on?
Like she don't say anything on the call.
She would call, and then like it's a bit as though she maybe like didn't want to now say anything. She would cut the call even before I could pick, And so I just called her. I was like, Deborah, please, what has happened? Like, is everything okay? She was like, I was like, Daddy is dead, Abby. She said yes. And I remember I was standing in my parents' room and I was looking at their mirror, looking at a note I had written. Like I'd made him a note when I thought he was going to come back to the house on Friday, just like telling him that I'm so proud of him for pushing through and that I'd read some scriptures there. And I was looking at that note. And I started noticing that like my vision was getting blurry and I was not seeing myself no more. So I walked out of my parents' room, went to where my immediate older sister was and my cousin, and I just looked at her and I was like, just burst into tears. And so at this point, it's like all of our neighbors had found out because my mom had called them. Okay. So when I said it to her and she screamed, they had figured
so she didn't know.
She didn't know. So I was the one who called Deborah back.
And you told actually, and then you confirmed it. They didn't tell you.
Exactly. I confirmed it exactly. And so when I told Sarah, she screamed crying and all of the neighbors they had picked the signal that okay,
Like,
we now know.
know,
So
so
they
you can
all came
come.
down, and everybody was in no time. The front of our house was packed with cars. Like people were coming from far and wide, and it was just a tear galore. Like if we know we were crying. And in Taraba, or like amongst the northern people, there's something they called Gidamutua. Like it means the house of the dead, literally. That's like
Okay.
the translation. And
Okay.
it just means that like you would accommodate, not accommodate per se, but like you would entertain and welcome like condolence greeters or
Yeah.
whatever for like a week. And so that week I meant to be cooking. So in that moment I didn't really feel it so much because people were always around, like my friends were coming
Yeah.
over, like my relatives were coming over. My friends like crashed over with us in the house, which was so
To
sweet
be
of
able
them.
to gist, we talk to.
Exactly. So it was nice at least in that moment. But that's how I found out about, my dad
Wow.
passing.
I think what's funny here is that you actually like pulled it out of them.
I had to.
Yeah.
My parents or they don't always like to share bad news with me, which I think is so weird because I feel like I handle bad news really well.
Yeah. I think same
I
here
feel like I
too.
handle bad news. Every single time that I found out that someone close to me has passed, it has been through like, tell me this thing now, or maybe a mistake. Like somebody will now
Just
like,
mistakenly just say it.
and I'm like, what's good? They don't like telling. I think for them, they just feel like they don't know burdening me with, and I'm just like, you all please. I was like 19 or 18 at the time, so I'd grown
Yeah.
up a bit now.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, the whole week people were there.
Mhm.
When did they finally start to leave? And when did you start like actually processing everything without, everybody being there,
Mm,
everybody being around? Like, when did you start to like, let's say, deal with? Because I mean, I'm sure the whole week and weeks after with the relatives,
mhm.
church members,
Yeah.
it felt like a, should I say, holiday or something. People are just coming and
Coming
going. So
around, yeah.
you're not really alone to
Mhm.
think. You're not really in that space where you can really process it. So when would you say it started to like,
Dawn on me, yeah.
yeah,
Mm, I would say that I feel like when I talk about like my dad passing, people are always so like that they jump scare for them because I say it with so much casuality. Like, oh, my dad is dead, and they're like, ah, ah. Some people, some people are like,
how should I say?
like I'm just like, what? So I feel like God prepared me in
Mm,
advance, which is so funny to say. But I didn't want. I felt like there would have been a question that would have made me say this. So that's why I didn't say earlier. But
yeah,
in November of that 2020,
2020, yeah.
I had gone to my friend's house, and this was such a random ask. But she was just like, "Oh, Shekinah, how's your dad?" And I was like, "Oh, he's okay, he's fine. But even if he's not going to be fine, that's okay too." Him like what? Because like who,
Who says that
which
casually?
child, and like I look like my dad, like
Yeah, I see
spitting
pictures.
image of my father, who are really close because the gap between my sister and I, even if in age is like just about 3 years between me and Sarah and 5 years between me and Deborah, but they had gone into secondary school, boarding school long before like I
You
even
even,
went there,
yeah. So you
So
had that
for the
time.
period of time I was alone with my dad for a long time. So we
Mm,
bonded like mad. We're very, very close. So for me to say,
even if he's not
you
fine,
know,
it's okay.
I mean, in retrospect, like I now see how everything played out. But in that moment, I don't think I was saying it because I wanted him to die. Of course not.
Yeah, you were
It
just,
just came out.
yeah.
Went back home. I left my friend's house. Like a few days after that, my mom and I were even talking. And then the next thing she said, she was like, "Oh, that's sure. I know that in like my life, all the things that I have and all the things that they've been able to do is God that has made it, like made provision, not them. That so if anything happens, I'll be okay. Shit, that do I know?" And I was like,
Okay, so I'm guessing at this point your
"Mhm."
sisters are done with school,
Yeah. So
university. So it
Deborah,
was just
yeah,
you.
I think Deborah was done. Sarah was not done.
Okay, okay.
Sarah, Sarah was done also, yeah, because Sarah and Deborah were both done with uni at this point, and like I was the only one. I'd not even gotten into uni yet because I
Yeah.
went to uni in 2021 of May. So I
Okay.
didn't get into uni yet. So, but like I'd been at home for like COVID. I first of all had like 1 year when I didn't get admission, and then I had COVID
COVID,
year, and then
yeah,
like there was
yeah.
now 1 year strike in my okay no that's after. So but like in my 200 level there was a strike, but I'd been at home for like almost 3 years at a
Wow.
stretch. So
So
I
she was
slept,
just assuring you, right?
yeah, and I was just like, man, that's a little weird, but that's okay too. And so when my dad now passed, I found that like I didn't grieve like
Yeah.
the rest. And I felt guilty for it for the longest time because I was like,
Mm.
why am I so okay? And I was like, I should be sad now. Like, I've watched Nigerian movies of people who lose their fathers. I've had friends who have lost relatives or siblings or
Yeah.
parents. And I'm like, this is not what I used to know. Like,
This is not how, this is not how
this
you're
is not
supposed to
how,
be
like, this
feeling.
is not how it's, so I felt guilty for the longest time for not feeling all the silence. Of course, I would cry. Like, and the cry was not forced. Like, I would, so moments when, like, one time in 2022, I was away for my cousin's wedding, and I knew my dad and that cousin, they're friends.
Very
They're
close.
literally very friends. They're friendly with themselves. So I knew that, like, if my dad would have been here, like, I know how, like, the whole
What you would
feeling,
have done.
how it would have been so much
Yeah.
different. So moments like that would remind me of him so strongly, like, bring tears to my eyes and all of that thing. But like in terms of like the very generic, very expected reactions to,
It wasn't
I
same
didn't
for
have
you.
those. Like I didn't have bouts of depression. I didn't go into it. Like when I went to uni in 100 level, and I would just tell people that, oh, like I don't have a dad, they could not believe it. Because I was so normal. Like I had like all the things I
So it
need there.
wasn't
Like
like a thing that you, how will I say, carried with
mhm,
you. You mentioned that your reaction to like losing your dad wasn't like similar to what you had watched online, because
mhm,
I've had people that I know have lost someone, either like parents or siblings, and for some people it feels like it never leaves them.
mm,
Like the loss never leaves them. I don't want to, maybe they actually never recovered I don't know if you're supposed to recover from it, or
mhm,
if you're supposed to get to a point where like the pain kind of reduces. I mean,
yeah,
thinking about them always brings tears to your eyes.
of
Normally,
course.
obviously, you always have fun memories with them. For some people, it's almost like the loss is always with them.
Mhm,
It's like it marks their life forever. That's the best way I can put
mm,
it. And there have been people where I'm just praying to God that this doesn't define their life. Like,
mm,
I pray that they get to, and I'm saying it as trivially as I can, because I know that there are different ways in which people can go.
of
And also it
course.
determines how everybody would react to it or
Yeah.
respond to it. But I'm trying to also be sensitive here. So
Mhm,
for some people, it always stays there. And for some people, it's like somehow they get over it.
mhm,
They start to really live afterwards. So I mean, I can imagine you saying that for you, you didn't react the same way.
mhm.
It wasn't similar. But would you say that there were things that helped you deal with it in your own way? I mean, even if you were like prepared beforehand, because there's somebody that I know that was sick, and we
Mhm.
were going to like lose her.
Mhm.
And when I wanted to pray for her, like, when you're praying for somebody not to die and you're
Mhm.
staying there 5 minutes, I was done. And as I stood up, I was like, God, it can't be like this one. You're
Mm.
not allowing me contend. This one, you're not allowing me
Mhm.
push. It cannot be. But I mean, I already knew that's what it was, because I mean, I
Yeah.
felt like if God wanted us to like pray
Mhm.
to avert it, for it not to happen, we would have just been there, tiring, praying.
Yeah.
But and I was saying in Jesus' name, Amen. And I stood up. I remember I was kneeling in front of my God, and I stood up, and
Hmm.
I'm like, God, it can't be this. So, what would you say? Were there things that helped you deal, like maybe
Hmm.
movies, books,
Yeah.
songs, sermons?
Okay. I think primarily believers dealing with anything that is remotely difficult, one of our first responses is always like anger with God, because somewhere in our minds we feel like we should be exempt from
Mm-hmm.
all of the
Mm-hmm.
hardships that life throws. We just feel like, after all, I
Yeah, you
am
get,
the daughter of the
yeah,
king of the universe and stuff like that. So when my dad passed, I struggled with my relationship with God for a bit,
yeah,
where like I remember in the morning, so I told you that like we had people living with us for like a week,
yeah. And so they,
and yeah, so in the mornings they'll wake up and they'll want to like sing praises and all of this, and I'll just sit down there looking at them like I will not sing. I'll just be
yeah.
like, then everybody, good morning, good morning, and everybody goes on their merry way. So there was one day that I was able to just drag myself, and I was just like, okay, Shekinah. There was a verse that came to my mind, which was paraphrasing, but if you're faced doing those in the
In
day of
days of adversity,
adversity,
yeah, their strength is small.
exactly.
I used to think that that verse was not fair. Like,
You know,
this
like
thing has hit me hard. Allah.
it's no, it's insane. But like I remember that morning, I was like, you know what, okay. So I carried my Bible and I just opened. I think I just opened Matthew, and then I got to Matthew 10:30, Matthew 10:30, and it says,
Yeah,
and even the very hairs on your hair are numbered.
numbered.
And in that verse was like a warm hug. I actually legit have it on a shirt. Like I have it like on a
Yeah,
shirt.
written down.
I made a shirt with it on it. In that moment, I just knew that God sent that verse to me,
Yeah.
like to just be a reassurance for me. So that really held me in that season, as time went on. But in terms of like how I was able to deal or cope, I feel like it had a lot of things to do with the kind of person that my dad was. So my dad
Hmm.
used to joke a lot. He was such a joker. and like I think it was like 2020 or 2019, there were like a lot of kidnapping.
Yeah.
And so they're telling people that, oh, don't travel, oh, stay. I had to travel, eh? Don't travel. And there was one time
They
that
can't stop you.
so what he would do is like he used to do this thing where he would drive, like he won't take a car with him. He'll travel with his car.
Oh,
He
okay.
travel with public transport, and then now start using another car when he gets to Taraba, so that they don't trace him with that car. Or they don't do
Or know that, that's the man in this.
exactly. So he's now tell us that, oh, if they ever call him for ransom and he hears that we paid, he will not find it funny with us. And I like, it used to be so funny
So
to
you should
us.
not pack your money and give
He said if you
anybody.
should hear,
So people should just leave him there.
they should leave him there. That when they're tired of him, they'll send the money. Where they want to claim, okay, my dad traveled very light. He lived such a light, like the man, he was just so phenomenal. He did not have like any baggage. He did not. My dad was one of the people that like would literally walk into any room and talk to anybody without any fear of this person will hold me for something, or this person is accuse me of something.
He had a very free mind, yeah.
Free mind. So he gave me a lot of like peace. And the way my dad also lived his life, when it comes to like losing a parent, I think one of like the fundamental fears that people have is how would they now survive?
Yeah.
Like, my dad was, I would say, like the major breadwinner of my family, so like losing him felt like kind of meant like, I guess
how are we going to go?
Yes, that's going to be a serious, We were very much okay. And my dad had set up structures and set up systems in a way sort of guaranteed our okayness. That makes any sense. Like he planned for like the future. He had like a business. He had a business that still feeds us to today, which is actually very funny.
Yeah.
He had like houses in Taraba. It kind of made us know that like we'll still be okay. That even in his death, like somehow he's still even catering for us.
Yeah.
So I was able to handle all those things. But I think primarily it was also me looking at this death as a thing of honor. And I'll explain. So while we know that all good and perfect things come from God,
yeah,
we also can understand that some things he permits.
Yeah.
And I can beat my chest confidently and say that there's some hardships and there's some difficulties that God will not give certain people. Because he just knows that if I land this, if you look at the story of Job, like the devil came to Job and said, test this your child, let us see. And God said, you know what, go ahead. Because he trusted that Job will be able to handle
it.
So in that moment I thought of myself as Job and thought, you know what, if God permitted, if the devil had attempted to like take this man's life and God said, you know what, go ahead, let's see. And I was able to handle it. I thought I was fantastic for doing that, So I think that was
your faith didn't wane. You guys didn't lose your faith.
We didn't lose our faith, nothing at all, like nothing of that sort, So sometimes I talk about like my story in this way, I feel like people are listening to me like, who is this? But at the same time,
it's the reality.
Like exactly, it's the reality. And like I'm happy to be in a position to also be able to comfort other people.
Yeah.
Between when my dad died and now, I've had like a few friends who have also lost their parents and who like I've been able to talk to. And
I mean, they would listen to you because they're like, okay, Shekinah understands.
Exactly.
They will not listen to me. Not like they will not listen to me, but there's a POV you're coming from. There's a point of view. You understand everything at that moment, and you're able to, help them like deal with it and go through it. I mean, it's really interesting though. It's really interesting that all of this happened. Would you say it changed your perception of God? Like, did you see God as one thing before?
Yeah.
And now see him differently? Or was it like 3 different steps? So there was who you saw God as first time, who you saw God as during the grief when it happened, and who you see God as
I think it's definitely that. Like, so I think it was like a 3-step thing. Okay, let me explain. So first of all, I first felt God. I felt like God had betrayed me because my dad was a politician in Taraba, quite a known one. And 2020, or like the next election would have been 2020. That was 2023's election, or 2023's election, I believe.
Yeah.
So it was now a thing where like he had already started working towards that election, and it looked like that was going to be our big break. If there are any like politicians' children who will listen to this thing, like that like you're always on edge.
Everything revolves around the next date, the next year.
Literally. So you're working towards this, and you're hoping that this will finally be the year.
Yeah.
So like we had gotten like so many confirmations, not even necessarily like faith, not necessarily from that angle, but like his time has finally come. Like this goes. And so, as with anybody, just like when somebody tell, Tobi, I will give you money, you already start planning that money. So I was already planning my. senator's daughter life. Oh, it would have hit me like mad. You know, so I was already looking forward to like,
I mean, you look like them.
Yeah.
You look like them.
being a politician child in Nigeria, we see them on our TikToks and our social media. Like they are not suffering.
This is the life.
You know, and I was really looking forward to not even just for like myself, but just for like my family in general, and also for
Yeah.
him who has been in that space for so many years
Yes,
and
okay.
had just been shortchanged one time or the other. You know, it's just been a lot of things, you know, at different points. So I was just really looking forward to when, like, you know, he would finally just come to. I can say this thing confidently and like let it go anywhere because I know it is true. My father had the heart of therapy, like he had their best interest at heart. Like
The people's
he would
first.
lay his life when I went for my dad's burial and people were saying things about him. I said, you know what? It's okay that you have done what you have come to earth to
Yeah,
do.
he's
Like
lived.
you
He
have
lives a
lived.
life for
You
people
have
already.
lived. Like
So
I'll share a very funny story, and I share this story all the time because I just loved it so much. My granddad, had bought him a pair of cortina, and that was not a very common thing at the time because they used to walk barefoot. They love the good no shoe on their feet, you know, so they'll walk multiple distances just with their legs like that or slippers at best. So my dad's dad had bought him this shoe. His brother, his immediate older brother, and then like three of his friends that they were very close, like, you know, and all of that. So my dad drafted a timetable for how they would share the shoe. And this man came and shared the story. And I was smiling so wild
like
because
this is
like
something you
this is
know
my
he
dad
would
that
do.
this is
Yeah.
at this point they were like maybe max between like 11 and 13. It's something years after for something years after rather. People who had known him maybe like 2-3 years before he died could still
Mm.
say same about him.
So
So
he
it didn't
wasn't even
start
doing it for what he was going to get now. He has always had that heart.
when
A timetable.
he drafted a timetable when my dad's burial. So of course they do like the whole procession thing. Somebody had said that the last time that they had a procession this grand was when a Taraba governor had died, like Dan Baba Sunte, like I can't remember
Many
the
years
year he died,
ago.
yeah, but like people were like that was the last time that this much people had gathered. People were
Mm.
scrambling. People were saying that even if it's a program they get, they want, like they just want something to
To
hold
hold
on to.
on to.
My heart was so grateful.
Mm.
When you start to work with God, you would realize that more than anything else, you just want to have a life of impact.
Yeah.
I have a friend who always says that he's so thankful for the gift of changed desires, and I think
Yeah.
that's so profound because like you just want you wonder like if you die today, people are able to say how
Mm-hmm.
Shekinah changed my
And they
life.
remember this.
Shekinah
It's the smallest
is
and the
literally.
little
One of that
things.
man had shared that anytime he's with my dad in public or like anywhere, and like he knows that people will come walk up to them. He always makes a mental note to tell my dad that he has less than the amount of money he actually has because my father can tell him to give everything in his pocket to that person, and he'll be like, "Okay, so how we going to get where we're going? Like, we're going to trek, you know?" So if my dad's asking, "Oh, sure, how much do you have?" You say, "I have 5,000." He has 10,000. Oh,
That's so if your dad says give them everything, they
he
will
can,
have
you
something.
know. So yeah, you know, he was that kind of person. At the initial stage, like, as I said earlier, like I was just hoping that, like, you know, 2023 will finally be, you know, the year where he makes his big break. And I knew that like it, not only will it mean great things for us as a family, but even also other people who had been tied
Around
to
you,
us, you
yeah.
know, people would be helped. People would their lives would be changed. Taraba would be a better place because that state, let's not get into that. You know. So when that happened, you know, there's also another thing where we feel like we know what somebody's purpose is supposed to be, but
Mm.
you actually don't really know. So in that moment, I thought like, but God, like this man is doing politics now. He's doing it well. He's doing it with, you know, with good intentions and all of these things. So why would you just let him get to that point
Get to
where he
that
can
point
actually
where
make actual impacts? Because all of these things he's doing out of pockets and all of that. But like, if he gets in that position, he can
he can
do
do more,
more.
do
You
better.
know. Later on, in the middle of like things, when I shared with the scripture that I got, I think
Yeah.
my perspective started to change, and also when I shared about how I started to feel as though like it was an honor thing to be
Yeah.
able to like even bear such a burden. I started to now see things differently. And then like finally when I started to now hear things that people had said about
About
him,
him.
and I thought, you know what, that's fair.
He already
That
did
is
the
fair.
job.
Like there is not one more thing that he could have done differently if he was in the position of the governor
Mm.
or the senate or the House of Representatives, you know. So it just at that moment I was like, yeah, that's okay. Like in Taraba now, not even only in Taraba, even in Abuja, like you obviously you will step your feet into those places and like you hear what people have to say. You hear the stories that they have. There's one article I read online, as one man really pouring his heart, and I was like, oh wow, you know. So by the time you have read all this, you just think that yeah. that's okay. Like, it's
Yeah.
fantastic that in such a short time that he was alive, he had been able to do
Do
all
all
of all
of
these things.
this.
My dad didn't really used to go to Family Worship Center, which is the church I go. When we had the service of songs rather, we had it in Family Worship Center in the church there. Pastor Sarah attended.
Attended.
She literally preached with him on Sunday because she was like that. What a man! People were coming from far and wide to share their stories. To we had to use like 4 coastal buses to go to Taraba because like people said that if it's my father, they will be there. That they don't care what they have to do. They will travel with us. And
So
Regina
after the one you guys did
in
here in
Abuja,
Abuja,
people
you
still travel.
guys traveled
Pastor
all the
Sarah's older sister traveled with us down. Like, so he had lived. I feel like my mom. I used to my mom and said that I feel like my dad had like an internal clock that we didn't know
was
about, and
sick.
as if he knew that he might not live like to
Mm,
90 and 100. So he wanted to just, as at 28, my father was already like very established. Like, he had done businesses, owned property. Like, he had already
done a
settled
lot of things,
at a
yeah.
very young age. So my perspective started to change a little, and
Mm,
then another thing that happened that I think helped me was now teaching my heart, because as believers, we will spend the lump of our lives doing that, teaching ourselves to
yeah.
remember.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
my gaze started to change, where I stopped thinking, God, see what you've taken away from me, but like, see what you have given me.
Giving me,
So
yeah.
in those moments, I started to now hold on to the little things that will happen, like maybe somebody coming over and saying, okay, I'll pay in this school fees for the rest of her university, or someone coming and saying that, okay, what do people need? I'm catering for this. Or somebody will come
Yeah.
and say. So in that moment, I realized there and there that how that scripture goes, even when
Mm,
walking where you're walk through fire, I'll be with you. The deepest waters, all of this. I started seeing
God's hand
God's
there.
hand.
Instead of saying, my dad would have been able to do
Bam.
A, B, and B for me. My dad should have been the one to blah blah. It's like saying, wow, okay, I see your hand here.
I see your
So you
hand
you
here.
have a plan for this. Oh wow, I see your hand here. It reminds me of a friend who was
Mm-hmm.
sharing a story about how she lost her dad at an early age. When she lost him, they weren't doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
But that randomly, a woman walked all the way from her house to their house
Hmm.
and said, this is the last money I have. But it's for this person's school fees.
Hmm.
And I was saying, this is all I have. Oh. And she's just looking like, wait. All of them held hands and the mother prayed.
Hmm.
And the woman brought the exam money. And the woman knew. And she said, really, that's why I want to be wealthy. I don't want to be wealthy because I want to, live a lavish life.
Hmm.
Like one day, her husband even asked that, if I give you this amount of money, will you
Hmm.
stop working? She's like, see, the
So
money you
yeah.
give me, it will not be enough because the things I want to do, I want to be answering people's prayers like every day.
Like my pastor will say that, like, if someone's prayer request is something that you can answer, don't be telling them God be with you. Like
Yeah.
someone can say, Toby, like, truly what I need right is 10,000. You have that ten
And you
thousand. Don't
can
come and
do
say,
it.
God will provide. Give
If you
it to
can do
them.
it, just do it.
Just give it to them.
And
Yeah.
so really, it's as you said, teaching our heart to
Mm-hmm.
see the goodness of God now
Mm-hmm.
instead of what we think should have been. As you said,
Yeah.
you felt like 2023 would have been
Yeah.
bigger
It would have
and
been.
better. But I mean, from his funeral and from things people were saying, I
Mm-hmm.
realized that way. This one was actually already living that life of
Yeah.
impact. He didn't wait till, okay, when I become senator, I'll do this.
Mm.
He was already living that life of impact. He was already
Mm-hmm.
doing everything. So it's almost like thinking back on his life. He
Mm-hmm.
lived like a full life. He lived like
100%.
he lived the way he was supposed to live,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of like times and
Yeah.
seasons, and he did everything he was supposed to do. I mean, as you said, if we reflect
Mm-hmm.
and if we can think back, we would actually see God making a way despite. I mean, we
Yeah.
can say, oh God, this shouldn't
Oh,
have, this shouldn't
absolutely.
have. But really, I
Absolutely.
feel like when we get to those points where because there's a testimony I always I said, God has
Mm-hmm.
never left me. I remember a day that I had 0 naira in my
Mm-hmm.
account and I was coming back from like a place and I was like, God, if money does not come, I don't know how I'm going to move from.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was somebody I had helped do something like
Mm-hmm.
months ago, and the person was just like, no, no, no. That I felt so moved and so touched by what he just said to send this money. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
God is so intentional and then he's always so on time.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
most times,
absolutely.
instead of looking at where we are now,
Mm.
we always talk in that place of this should
This
have.
should have not. I couldn't have said it better. Like, that's exactly. So I literally had to let go because I found that, like, minus the fact that, like, I love my father and I just love having him around. My dad was that father that would literally, if you see our baby pictures, we were always never at home. Never. Like, few pictures that are taken in the house. But we're always going. We used to go to Sheraton, like it was like our backyard. Like, we would go there. I have a very funny memory. One time, like, he came back home. We're talking about it not long ago. He came back home with like a big Ghana was go, all filled with like white. collared shirts, like not like ones you wear to the office, just like random like t-shirts.
Yeah.
Many. I said we should have been sharing around to all the children. And I was just like, ah. And so later on, he had this one small minivan like that. He brought the minivan, put at least the ones that their parents let go. And then he put all of us in there and took us to Mr. Biggs. So we just sat down there, eating ice cream. They would take picture. He would do many things like that. Like just make random trips to just go to the wildlife park. We'll go to the game reserves. We'll go everywhere.
These are
And my
lot
dad was always
places.
planning something. Like, okay, who wants to go to Yankari? Okay, who wants to go to Budu? Okay, who wants to he'll do all of those. We had such a fun future. And this was at the time when he didn't have a lot of money. So
Yeah.
knowing that if this man was in a position to do more, he would definitely do more. So I had to let go of what I thought my idea of, like, first of all, who my father would be in my life, and second of all, like what being in my life would have meant for me. I had to let go of that
All those
because
things, yeah.
somewhere in my head, I felt like, if my father becomes senator, for example, beautiful, fantastic life that I will live, and then like I will just go on to never suffer again. Because I mean, like the thing is, like with politics, it's usually like, it's no offense in Nigeria, but it's like you go for maybe like maybe senate
So
to
another
senate
thing, to
to
another
appointments
thing,
or
yeah.
something. Like, so I just knew that like he's a very good person. He's good at what he does. Like, so I knew that like it just meant like maybe a life of ease has just been welcomed.
And for at
In
least for
fact,
a
for
long
a
time,
long
an
time,
established,
we're
yeah.
just going to be very okay. So I had to let go.
I mean, all the plans you had made in your
I
head
just let
prior
go.
to
I
then.
threw it in the bin and I looked to God and I started seeing in the way that He would do things. I'm finishing university in December and my dad didn't even see me start school.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I said that my dad was breadwinner,
Yeah.
but my mother has put me through school. My mother has put me, when I first started going to UI 100 level, my school was like there's something K or thereabouts. And then he moved to like 100 and something thousand,
Nigeria.
like this, you know. But like that was not even a worry. Like we didn't even
Yeah, it
feel like,
wasn't like you guys didn't have to panic about it.
and like you just see how like little by little, step by step,
All those still doing
every other thing
everything.
has just
Yeah.
played out in a beautiful way. In a way that like you never really know. You never
Yeah.
really know how things will play out. Like, what if let's just do a very serious what if situation here now. And I'm okay, let's assume that my dad got into politics and he now started to like become wayward. And things just started to
Yeah.
like go all manner of
Or
all
it
sorts.
changes the person he is on
I
inside.
just
Yeah.
like many different things. Like at the point where I was thinking that it's 2023, my life will change if my dad wins the election. I don't know that it will. I didn't know that it would. Like
Yeah.
we will, but like now being in what's my current reality where I look to God for every
Everything.
single thing. And the Bible says that whose child
Who
you ask
asks
for
for
bread and
to give
you give him
something
stone
else.
or egg and I'll give you snake or whatever. And I am now a direct recipient of the providence of
Oh
God because
God.
like now there's no more middleman. So that
Yeah.
God, now you
God,
are
God is now, God is literally now your
like,
source.
you gotta hold me. So and it just is beautiful. And I love how this whole thing had now made me start to look at God as father now. Like I've looked at God as Lord, for so long. Oh, it's Lord as
Yeah.
Savior. But like now I've got to experience him as father who just always has my back. I tell people that I feel like God has given me a gift of perception, which is such a funny
Yeah.
thing to say, but like I never miss a God moment. Like, how to explain it? Like, so I can be walking on the road and maybe like it's about to rain, and I'm just like, oh, like God, like I would really just want this rain. So let me just get to my destination or something. Let me give you a very funny story that happened very recently. So I was going to my friend's house, and we don't know the boat prices, and this is a house that I have gone to multiple times, right? So I know my way there. It was not an issue. It was so clear from when I was leaving my house. When we started getting towards like that Guarimpa side, house in Guarimpa, when we were approaching like that Guarimpa side, the clouds were
Just
heavy.
changed.
And I said, Oyigi, Igi. I went for a birthday party. I didn't have any change of clothes. So if rain had beat me, I would have gone to that house wet and attended the party wet. And so I just dropped at there's a bridge, that Galadima bridge. I just dropped there and it started to rain. So I just like went and hid under the bridge. And then the rain stopped. I was going to book a boat to just kind of take me around. It should not be that
Yeah.
expensive now. And one woman behind me was like, she will go too. As we were about to just book the boat, the rain stopped. And then we went
You
up the
just
bridge and
walked.
then entered into the estate. And we got there and I was about to now get a keke to now take me to her estate, go. And then the rain started again. I was already in the keke when the rain started again. I was like, is this rain destined to beat me? And I don't even think I remember muttering a prayer, but I just said, I just resolved to my faith that, okay, I guess rain will beat me. I guess no problem. Nobody has ever died from attending a party wet, you know. So
We rain all over their
you
body.
understand. So I got into the keke, and then one other woman was there. So when the rest I getting heavy, she was not like, keke, oh, you will take me to my estate too. I was like, God. Oh, no, do not ask woman that, Ama, what estate are you going? Same
Same
estate I was
exact
going.
one. Wow.
And not only was the same estate, she was also going to be a house before the one I was going to. So we dropped her, and the keke dropped me right in front of the person's gate, and I just had to run inside. And I just thought, like,
So
you
it
know
was
what?
just
It was literally just God in that moment. And like for me, after my dad passed, I started to now like look to God a lot for sustenance. A lot of things that I've probably just thought, oh, daddy can handle, or daddy will find a way to handle. It's
You
my
turn
to
to,
God.
yeah.
And so it now made me become more conscious of the little things that God would do. That
Yeah.
ordinarily, like
Yeah.
maybe before I would have overlooked.
You just say, "Ah, my daddy fixed it, my daddy."
But like now
Yeah.
I've become like so small things, like maybe even just like you share, like maybe not having money at any point and just somebody just randomly sending
Sending, yeah.
like money to me, or just like in maybe a grade that I wanted to do well on a particular course or have a particular grade, and it just plain as so I
God
became
has
more
just,
and more
yeah.
conscious. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that, honestly, because what is life without adversities? It will come. It
Yeah.
will come.
They are bound to
So I'm grateful
happen.
for an opportunity to even shift my gaze, one, and even like sustain an image of God. Because now going forward, I've become one of those people who people will say, Shekinah, you're so happy. I say, like they say that's such a bad thing, but like I'm never really in a gloomy mood. My sister said that they think I live in the happy side of my brain. And I think what I would say is that I think I live in the remembrance of God's action
Yeah.
side of my brain. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like every single time that I'm in a fix, my mind just goes back to one day, one situation, one
When he
something
took
that
you out of,
God
yeah.
just
Mm-hmm.
and then in that moment I'm just like, oh yeah, this will also be sorted out. And then
Yeah.
also even if it's not, I tell people all the time that my favorite Bible characters are the three Hebrew brothers, and they think I'm joking.
Yeah.
I love those guys. Like, because they're like,
Even if he
even
doesn't.
if you do you know what it means to say such a thing? Like, do you know what it means to
Like,
say
we trust your plan so well that if your plan is to burn us in this fire, we
it is a
trust that
good
you know that it
do
is a good.
oh, God,
Yeah.
I love every time I read that verse in scripture, I goosebumps. I
Because they were
tears.
so sure. They were
Do
actually
you know
so
how you have to
sure.
be so convinced of the goodness of God
God, in
to be able to
everything.
make that kind of
See,
statement?
you understand that goodness of God when you go through
Of
adversity.
course.
I started to see that God is good when
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave a relationship.
Mm.
I started to say, God, you're good. And someone in my home church used to hear me and say my favorite song to sing then in choir was "You Are Good and Your Mercy is Forever." And I laugh
Mm.
because I'm like, you don't know what that song means to me.
Yeah.
To recognize that everything that God does is good. So even when it doesn't feel good to me, I know it is for my
It is
good.
for my good.
And I mean, at the instance where I was telling God, "You're good," and
Mm.
I mean, one of my favorite songs that season was a better song. This will be my song. You are always good.
Mm.
And funny enough, it was 2 years or 3 years after that I really started to comprehend. And even now, even last year,
Mm.
started to comprehend some things that okay, this was what you were, this is what you were doing. But really, when we understand God's goodness, we would
Yeah.
realize that our lives aren't just happening to us by chance. I mean, a
Yeah.
friend was telling me a lot of things today that had gone wrong and this and this.
Mm.
I mean, I had run out of things to say, but then I started remembering that wait, though, God is not unaware of the happenings of your
Yeah.
life. So if all of these things are happening this way, the way they are happening,
Mm-hmm.
then this is how he. I mean, I will not say this is how he wants it to be, but he knows.
He
He's seen
knows. Oh
everything.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
everything looks like a closed door. Everything looks like a blocked road.
Mm-hmm.
Everything looks like a whatever. I'm just saying that if they are all happening in this succession and knowing there's nothing you could have done better, you've prayed
Better.
and everything,
Yeah.
then just this is how he wants it to be now.
Yeah.
When the tide starts to turn, when we
Mm.
start to know, I just believe so much in God's plan. I was
Yeah.
telling a friend that see, prophecy that's gone ahead is where I'm standing.
Hmm.
Everything happening along the journey looks like potholes that they should be happening. But that thing God has said
Oh
is
yeah.
where I'm stuck there. I'm not stuck with everything happening,
In along the way,
along the
he will so
journey.
deliver. The prison and the pit makes the palace.
Yeah.
You recognize more the importance and the beauty of
Mm-hmm.
the palace when you have gone through the peace. You went through many peace. Prison, Potiphar pit. No, peace, Potiphar prison. And then where's the palace. So yeah, like
Everything begins
every
to make
it will
sense. Like,
it will so make sense. Like I tell people that like Christianity is a brainwash, but it's a type of brainwash that is for your good. Like the
yeah.
brainwash is typically like a bad thing, like oh they brainwashed you. But this is the kind of brainwash that you will be too happy.
You look back and you'll be like, wow,
You'll be
okay.
happy.
He knows what he's
He
doing.
knows.
And I feel like if you can reflect, then we can think really well. Because if you didn't reflect on the life your dad had lived, you
Yeah.
reflect on the fact that God is now showing himself to you as a father.
Mhm.
You're looking to him directly as your source, not who your
Yeah.
dad was. I mean, not like it was a bad thing before,
Yeah.
but you've come to recognize the providence of God so well.
So
You're seeing his
well.
hand in almost everything.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a warm hug every time. It's like,
Every
checks,
time.
no, I've got you. This
Mhm.
wants to happen. No, I've got you.
Mhm.
That was happen. So really, when the Bible says God works all things together for our good, you know, and for anybody that is grieving, what's like one last word like you want to like say or share?
It will always be easier for me to talk to believers because I feel like, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, but I'll just say this, that life has a way of just working out.
Mm.
And think of the kind of person that your parent or loved one was,
Yeah.
and think of the kind of life that they would have wanted you to live. My dad would have hated to see me sulk and cry.
Mm-hmm.
Eh? If you can ask God to give him one more chance, just calm down and just nod me. He was not that kind of person at all. My dad was something like my parents, two of them, like
Yeah.
they had a way of just making everything seem so like, is it really that big like, it's not invalidating your feelings, but just letting you know that like you're stronger than this thing that you have dealt with.
Yeah.
Like, so
And it
my
will pass.
and it will
It will pass.
see, you see the way the sun is to, I mean, the how they say now, they say that it's
The
the earth that
earth
is
that
rotating
rotates
happy,
around the
no more the
sun.
sun. Okay, that's okay too. So you see the way that the earth rotates is literally the same way that your problems will, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something, you know, you know how they say that they used to tease on TikTok. When I watch the TikTok videos, they'll be like, um what they say about that watched pot never boils or something like that. Think of your problem. Let your problems be all those things. They're looking at like, are you there? Okay. I didn't know you were even there. Like, treat your problems like such fickle, irrelevant, trivial things.
They're
Like, I know
just
that there are
there.
some problems that might overwhelm you, and by God's grace, we're just praying that those ones never come our way.
Come on,
But even
yeah.
if they do, see, let's look at it. If I get a C in a grade, I say, okay, I guess we'll move on to grieving
Next
for the
one,
next
we
paper.
do it, make it better.
Like, if I get like, if I wanted something so badly and it didn't come, okay, like that's
Yeah.
okay too. Like, I go to God and I pray about it. If it's something I know that maybe I didn't work hard enough to do,
Yeah.
I'll say, oh Lord, I'm very sorry
You do better.
for not taking the opportunity seriously. I repent of that and move on to the next thing. I never dwell on anything. But back to your question, I think I'll say just remember how that person would have lived and would have wanted you to live.
Yeah.
And also just rely and rest in God's goodness. If anything I would tell you to do is to go on Google, research Bible verses that talk about God's goodness. There are many,
Yeah.
because that's who He is.
Yeah,
So it's all about
really,
scripture.
really.
Read the stories of people who read Joseph's story, internalize it. Like, let it stick in your
Even
body.
Job's
Read Job's
story.
story.
Yeah.
Read where the Bible tells that He knows the plans He has towards you, thoughts of good and not of evil. But primarily understand that it is your duty
Mm-hmm.
to stand strong and be
Yeah.
immovable. Like, be immovable. The Bible says, be steadfast
Just
and
an immovable.
immovable.
Yeah.
It's like, it is not, God will not do it for you. He will
You have
help
to
you.
find the strength in him. You have to tap into
Tap into it.
that strength.
He also says in His word that His strength is made available in
In
our
my weakness.
weaknesses.
Yeah.
So he's already ready to help you, right?
Mm.
But you just have to lean into it. And by the time you do, don't be like, I remember I was saying earlier that I felt guilty for not feeling like
Sad.
sad. Like, don't get me wrong, go. I will
You
cry.
cried.
Hey, I will cry. Like, there are moments where maybe like I had like a particular need. I knew that my father was alive. Now this one's not small. I will wail like, oh my God, oh, why you do me like this? You know, I'll cry, 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 cry,
Yeah.
and you know, I miss him every day. Like every day that I go somewhere and I see people like with their dads, I'm like, hi, so you know, like I miss having him around. I just miss some of the things I knew that he would have said to me in certain situations. I just miss his presence. I just miss having him
Yeah.
odd. Like, you know, that is so weird in that like someone you have lived with all your life. Like
You know, it's
one
like
day just wake up and
they're gone
they're not there.
how?
They will never be there again. You
Mm.
know, but just hold on to God.
Yeah.
I know it sounds cliche, and I hoped and I wished. And when I was coming here, I was like, ah, God, I wish I can say something that would be so
We just
out,
answer all the questions.
but it's cliche things are cliche because they are true.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people say it all the time because they are true. You know,
Yeah.
hold on to God. He would blow your mind in ways that you cannot even imagine. Like I've not had a need.
Mm.
I've
I
not
think God says the
lacked.
father to the fatherless. I
I
mean,
have
he
not
means like him.
lacked. Like I have not lacked. And I've learned to look for God in little things, in
Yes,
everything, in all
yes.
things.
Mm.
And it's just so beautiful to be able to see his hand, in all the
In
many
our
ways.
lives,
So
really.
yeah, I think that's just like
Thank you
the
so
last
much,
words.
Shekinah. Like,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I've learned to see God, in a different dimension, in different light, in a
Mm-hmm.
different way. And I mean, who knew that we could learn all of that from grieving? Really,
Mm-hmm.
God is just amazing. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to like, comment, share. Share the link to everybody. Tell everybody about the podcast. And I will see you in our next episode. I remain Tobifusika. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye.